everyone. Christina Simmons with Say Yes to Holiness here, and today I want to share a little bit of wisdom from St Katherine Drexel. We actually would celebrate her memorial on March 3rd, which would be tomorrow, but since tomorrow is a Sunday of Lent, we're not necessarily going to be paying a real close attention to St Katherine Drexel, and I think she is the perfect saint for our time to give us some wisdom about how to negotiate the challenges that we have in our very diverse, multicultural society. And she was one of the first to really draw attention, especially to the Native Americans, otherwise now known as indigenous people, as well as African Americans, our Black communities. And so one of the biggest things that we have to look at is the fact that first is that her own upbringing was a very good one. She was well educated, she was well traveled, she was one of the Drexel heiresses, and in fact, her father was an international banker, and he, after her mother died, soon after Catherine was born, her father remarried, and it wasn't a Cinderella story in the sense of the evil stepmother, but rather a beautiful relationship between the two of them. She was a wonderful mother for all of the Drexel, girls. And one of the biggest things is that when her stepmother became ill with cancer, she nursed her for 3 years until she died. And it was during that time that Catherine came to realize and think about becoming a nun, becoming a sister. And our Lord, then after her stepmother had passed, she went and did some more traveling. She went out to the western part of the United States, and she became very much aware of the plight of the Native Americans, the indigenous people of our country, and how they were treated, of the living conditions that they had, the opportunities or lack thereof that they had. And she soon after touring the western part of the United States, where she was made aware of this, she then was on a tour of Europe. And while she was there, she had the opportunity to have a meeting with Pope Leo XIII. And she asked him to send more missionaries to the American West to help her friend, Bishop James O'Connor. And interestingly enough, the Pope didn't go, "Yes, I'll send more people." Rather, he asked her the question, "Why not be a missionary yourself, my child?" Well, this is the same Pope who also told St. Therese of Lisieux, who came begging to enter Carmel early, and he told her to be obedient. It's Pope Leo XIII had a great impact on those who eventually became those that we now recognize as saints. So anyway, so Catherine comes back. This seed has been planted in her mind, and she goes back with her sisters to South Dakota, to the Lakota Indian reservations there. I'm actually familiar with those, having been out to Pine Ridge and Rosebud myself. And it was after spending time there that finally Catherine realized this is where her heart was. This is where God was calling her to. And so she joined the Sisters of Mercy in Pittsburgh and began her religious formation in their 2-year novitiate. And when she was at the age of 33, Catherine took her vows as the first sister of the Blessed Sacrament, because in this time, as she was discerning whether or not to become a sister, she was encouraged to become a sister, but then to create an order that specifically would focus upon helping Native Americans and African Americans. And I'm using these terms because these were the terms that she used during her time on earth. So she made her first vows, and then she went about sharing the gospel and also the life of the Eucharist with Native Americans, African Americans. The old Drexel home outside Pennsylvania was actually the sisters' first convent. So from there, they spent 3.5 more years training, and then they went west. They went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that was the first boarding school that they opened. She spent her life and the millions of dollars. I think there was an estimate at one point that what she actually ended up spending was the equivalent of $500 million, $504 million in today's dollars. And in the process, she established 50 missions for Native Americans in 16 different states, a system of Catholic schools for African Americans, 40 mission centers, and 23 rural schools. So why am I talking about St. Katherine Drexel? And why did I say that she could be a great guide for us in our time? Well, specifically because she spoke about and she drew attention to the needs of the poor, especially those who were experiencing racial and social injustices. And all of us are called to this. All of us are called to speak out. And it's fascinating because from the age of 33 until she was 77, so for 43 years, my math is terrible, sorry, but for 43 years, she was active. And she went out and she founded all of these schools and she helped her sisters do these things. But at the age of 77, she was forced to retire due to a stroke and heart attack. And then she spent 20 years in prayer, interceding for all of the work that was being done. One of which was the founding of Xavier University, which is the first historically Black university that was established in New Orleans. But the fact is that she prayed and interceded for and offered her physical sufferings for all the work. Here again, the wisdom, prayer, and sacrifice go together. And we need to always remember that. With sacrifice and great prayer comes great fruit. And that is what we saw with all of the schools that she founded and the continuation of the work of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. So what are some things that you could do in order to live this way that St. Katherine Drexel lived, and what wisdom does she have for us? Well, the first is make sure to spend time in adoration. Spend time before the Blessed Sacrament. That was the name of the order that she founded, the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. And so spending time in adoration, in prayer, and interceding for all those that the Lord has placed on your heart, but in a special way, to be able to ask the Lord, how might I give myself to others, to my families, my neighbors, my parish, my community, especially those in need. And this was a journey that took her from the time that she met Pope Leo the 13th until she entered the novitiate. That was a 3-year time. And then there was another 2 years during the novitiate. And then there was another 3 years of preparation. So it was almost a decade before, from the time that it was, why don't you be a missionary, to her actually being that missionary. So these things take time, and that is why she has such great wisdom for us, is because we're all looking for the quick fix, right? We're all looking for the easy button. We're all looking for the, I want to see the change today. I want to see the difference today. But the fact is that our Lord takes time. He takes time to prepare us to be able to go and to do the work that he has called us to. So that is the second piece of wisdom. Take that time as you are discerning. How might I give my life in love? And it could be you're not changing your state of life as Katherine did, going from layperson to religious sister. But it could be that our Lord is asking you to look at an elderly relative that maybe you can help and accompany more fully. Or maybe it's someone in your neighborhood that maybe you can watch the kids, or you could go and bring them food, or maybe to be a big brother, big sister for a child who doesn't have older siblings or doesn't have those examples in their life that they need. That's the whole reason why we are sponsors for our confirmandi, is why we're godparents for those who have been baptized, is in order to provide those Christian models. So, spending time in adoration, and then taking time to discern, how might I give my life in love? And the final one is really celebrate celebrate diversity, celebrate we just celebrated African American History Month, and a lot of people are like, oh, Black History Month, whatever, but the fact is that for us to be open to the reality that there is so much richness, there is so much that we can gain from just sharing with one another, and learning about one another's cultures. Particularly, I was changed forever by my time with the Lakota Sioux in South Dakota. And it's been something that I have carried with me since the time I was, so more than 30 years ago that I spent that time and was able to accompany them. So really being able to celebrate that, not being afraid of it, but to welcome it and to see, all right, Lord, how do you wish me to draw closer to you by being in union more fully with my brothers and sisters? And that would be actually the final thing. So this is number 4. The final thing would be pray for an end to all prejudice and racism. Pray for it and sacrifice for it. You can sacrifice in the smallest of ways. You can do it by supporting, contributing profits to an organization that is working for that. It could be in supporting a young artist or a musician, of those cultures, just by purchasing their music or their art, or whatever it is that they are doing in order to continue to promote their culture as you celebrate it and pointing it and having it a part of your home. And when people ask you about it, being able to say, yeah, my brothers and sisters, the Lakota Nation, or my African American brothers and sisters, or my Hispanic brothers and sisters, all of these ways in which we are drawn together through Christ, with him and in him. And this is our call, and this is the wisdom that St. Catherine gave us. Someone who shouldn't have been able to kind of, identify with the needs and the challenges of the poor and those from other cultures. She was a socialite from Philadelphia who had all the money in the world, literally. And she could do anything and didn't have to make this choice to go and to accompany, to be in union with her brothers and sisters who had less. And instead, she took all of what God had given her family and which she had benefited from, and she took all of that and she put it to work building up the kingdom. May we be able to have people talk the same about us at our passing as well. I hope that you've enjoyed learning a bit more about St. Catherine, and also about how it is that you can take the wisdom that she gave us and modeled for us, of spending time in adoration, of spending that time of discerning how is it that our Lord desires for us to give our life and love, celebrating that diversity, and then particularly in praying for an end to prejudice and racism. Everybody have a wonderful day and continue this journey of Lent. God bless, and see you soon.